give you your reward. You passed your own hardest test and opened up the door. So if you feel unworthy, it's your own great mistake to see not what you have made, but what you never made, never made. To be free, yeah. To be free, yeah. Give yourself your mighty self, the mind that knows all things. Understand your wants and needs. You became their king. So give yourself your mighty self, eyes so you can see. Help yourself, your mighty self, always to be free, to be free. To be free, yeah. To be free, yeah. To be free, yeah. To be free, yeah. Give yourself. To be free, yeah. To be free, yeah. To be free, to be free, to be now. Don't try to be free, to be free.
The views expressed in the following show are of the host, the guest, and the callers. The content of the following show, its accuracy, authenticity, and the ramifications of the use or application of said content is the responsibility of those speaking and listening, not the broadcast medium.
All right, we are back and we are live. Just had a little technical snafu, which, you know, that's then should be normal by now. With all this stuff here, next time I'm gonna screen capture my bandwidth test that I run before the show, and I had 10 megabits per second uploading, and I set my upload recorder or encoder at 35, so it'd be 3,500 megabits per second. Versus the 10,000 kilobits per second, I should say. So it's well underneath it. However, when I start to broadcast, and this is every week, it starts up and it goes down. And right now I'm flirting around at the bottom. So I'm not sure what that means to the people who are watching. I'm not sure if it means like it's wavy or skippy or whatever, but it does record fine. And all I can say is... I do what I can. Richard L. Miller will be up in a couple of minutes. He's on deck and swinging, literally. But I wanted to bring up a couple of quick pieces of news. Let's go to the A chart of the day, nearly half of the selfie-related deaths are caused by drowning, and it has a list of deaths while people are drowning, are doing selfies. 57 people. What is it, 57 out of what? This is in Sydney? No, I'm trying to see where, from December 2003 to January 2013, so it's 4 years. That doesn't seem like a whole lot in 4 years, but 57 drowning, 27 falling, 18 crushed by a train. What am I laughing for? 8 gunshots, 7 electrocution, 6 truck collisions, 4 from animals. God knows what that means. I'm going to take a selfie with this bear as he eats them. 3 explosions, 1 motorcycle collision, and 1 hot water burns. I have no idea what that would be. I'm guessing they jumped into Yellowstone or something like that. Anyway, be careful out there when you do your selfies. Anyway, we got Richard here. Let's just go right to him. Let me hit the magic button. Richard, if you can unmute yourself, we will go here. Uh-oh. Unmute. You mute it so easily.
Houston.
There we go. There we go. Richard Allen Miller.
Yeah.
He is live on Feet to Fire. It is Miller time.
Cool.
So
another.
I do have a couple of questions that we will weave throughout the evening. The chat room, live chat room, is open in the YouTube channel. There is a chat room I will have to make an effort to look at that is in Spreaker as well. So if you're listening on the audio-only Spreaker channel, you could zoom in there and try, and I'll look. Email is always good. That would be James at feettothefireradio.com. There is here's Twitter's, all the stuff on the bottom here, as you see. There's ways that you can get in touch while we're doing this live thing. So anyway, Richard, so you've been out checking some fires, huh?
Oh man, Carrie Cassidy came to visit me, and we had to take her down the Rogue River to the jet boat, and this was the last journey down because they were letting the cob fire actually burn to the river, and we went down to Hell's Gate, which is these big cavern things, and the flames were dripping over the cliffs into the water, and we got pictures of that. And Carrie did a thing. You can find it on my Facebook page. My website has over on the one side, when you go there, both Facebooks. I have Sustainable Lifeboats and Dr. Richard Allen Miller. And I have some pictures from outer space showing where the lava is starting to cause some of the fires in Northern California and down here in Southern Oregon. Now, what's happened is that we've had several interesting earthquakes. And so I'm watching.
What channel is that? Which one is it? Richard Allen Miller?
Yeah, richardalanmiller.com. And try this URL. I'm sending you a new message because what I did is I have now
well
free. I'm sorry.
If I take your message, it'll mess the screen up, but I can do it and take it back. So.
Oh, just don't worry about it. Here's the URL. If you go to my website, go ahead and mess up the screen. If you go to my website, I have a free resource library. And Sustainable Lifeboat is another place I'm doing it. This library, if you go on my website, has more than 4,000 downloads of ancient rare manuscripts that I used when I taught at 11 years at Harvard metaphysics as a graduate level course. And what I've done is put these rare manuscripts up for other people to see where I got my conclusions, and you can do your own research and have your own opinions. And it's a free download thing, just like we used to do shareware. And here's one. Watch this one. This is called Beyond Weird and .com. And BeyondWeird.com is an interesting one. It's a bunch of OTO, Ordo, Templi, Orientis, people that have put up a whole series of witchcraft, older things like Margaret Mead and Esther Harding, The Way of All Women, Women's Mysteries, that kind of thing. Psychic Self-Defense by Dion Fortune. You can find anything here. Pablo's. That's what it is. Beyond Weird homepage. This is a typical link. Beyond Weird is one of more than 4,000 links and downloads of rare manuscripts. Greater and Lesser Keys of Solomon. Probably the only book on magic ever written.
Is this on richardmiller.com, all these things you're talking about?
Richard Allen Miller. Yeah, richardallenmiller.com.
I'm showing it right here.
Yeah. Now, and you go down there, down in the lowest line, over to the right a little bit, it says download library resource. Free, download library.
All right, here.
Yeah. Now, just start picking a subject and watch the different books that pop up and just slide down. This is a gift I'm giving to people on the research I did because I'm Dr. Strange and this is my library.
Well, having know that you're basically a working man here, it would be good. People could also click whether they're in the PayPal links or buy your products. It would kind of help.
A starving artist comes to mind. Thank you. I don't want anything for free. I'm prepared to exchange. That's what I'm about. Buy my books. That's how you want to support me. Do not go to Amazon. They are absolutely criminal at Amazon. Absolutely criminal. I have them cold. I can't even. The last copyright lawyer I talked to, she's in Arizona. She's probably the biggest gun in the country. And she says, Dr. Miller, I cannot represent you because it would be a conflict of interest. I said, why? Why would it be a conflict of interest? Dr. Miller, I can't tell you that either, because that also would be a conflict of interest.
All right, there's somebody in the chat room. They're typing in caps, and I appreciate that so I can see it. I don't think you can do boldface, but someone is saying, what were you saying? What were you saying about the Lesser Key of Solomon? You kind of went past it.
Lesser Keys, Guisha, is about the 72 Lemegeton. I taught a course a very, very long time ago in Georgetown. Jesuits brought me in to teach a course, graduate level, on demonology. Now, what I discovered is if you look at the greater keys, they have these little sigils. Ashtaroth has a little geometric sigil. Where did that come from? How does it work? Well, back in older magic systems, they used magic squares, where the numbers were this way and the numbers were that way, and they add the same and da-da-da-da-da. And then they represented a star map where you do Ashtaroth, A-T-H-R, boom, and a geometry came out that was the name of the demon that Enoch and Raziel talk about. And so what I did, I identified 68 of the 72 Lemegeton fallen angels as from Babylonian star maps, and I updated it to today and where the stars are in our system today. And if you don't think the Jesuits wanted that information, man, they're sitting there writing it down and all of that. It's great. Demons in previous centuries were considered qualities in men not worthy of men. They used to call them the 5 deadly sins, jealousy, rage, anger, da-da-da-da-da. These are the result of being wounded. Like circumcision when you're a baby and you don't really understand why they're chopping your dick off, but that's what they're doing. And that has an effect on the way you behave and normal life. And those are called wounding in Jungian psychotherapy. And what demons were those qualities, Bruce Lee, become the water, and you put it in a container like a glass. And all of a sudden, now you can do something with the water. You've containerized it. That's what a demon is. We have containerized a concept in man or behavior, like greed or jealousy. That was, I don't want to be like that. That was the original fallen angels. And I am the physicist that did not blow himself up. Jack Parsons started JPL and blew himself up, forming an OTO. I am beyond that to the point where, like my latest book, coming out shortly is it's a book on tarot, and it's called The Magical and Ritual Use of Metaphor, Archetypal Gods in Daily Living. And if you choose to use this system from the Kabbalah, basically it's a form of pathworking where you identify the various stories that are going on in your behavior. And we all have different stories going on. And in Jungian psychotherapy, they say you're either possessed, only one story, or you're complex. You got more than one story. And each story, like Psyche at the Well of Souls, has an ending, Greek. And so is that how you want it to end? And if you don't, then you have an opportunity to change the story and the complexity of what makes you you. Now, it turns out that these demons, that's what Mephistopheles was doing, was learning how to use wounds, disadvantages, things that limit you as tools that make you unique and able to do something somebody else can't do. Let me give you an example. Supposing you have a bunch of anger. You don't want to be angry. However, that anger will clean that floor better than any other emotion you could possibly evoke. So when you're angry, that's when you wash your floor. And if you look at it that way, now it becomes a blessing, and that's where intent then becomes closer to purpose, because that's why you had that wound, to do something you couldn't do without it. I have a philosophy. I'm evolving into the next stages in the evolution of man, and I'm starting to. It's very exciting for me because I'm realizing now that these tools are altered states of consciousness, tools in a toolbox. That once you learn how to use these tools, like that chill, that dimethyltryptamine being released on the central nervous system, you can do work with that. And that's what I'm writing about now in the non-local mind. And I have a small paper out, which is 3 of 10 parts of just chapter 7. And that article called The Illusion of Reality. It has to do with the Mandela effect and time travel and the true nature of cavitation. We have 2 brains. We have physics and religion. And we're all a little bit of this and that. And they're actually the same thing from a different perspective.
Are you saying religion or
yeah, religion and science are different ways of science. You look at the Bible. The Bible is actually a book on science. The Sefer Yetzirah, for example, the Book of Formation, is relating sounds to words and how to pronounce the word of God. And when you do something like that, I've watched Tibetan Buddhists using these big, long horns like they do in the Swiss Alps in a certain geometric array, and they can move with very large stones. Previous technologies were seen as religious and as opposed to science. And the two are basically why you have 2 brains, why there's Nibiru and the sun. Everything is a reflection of the other side. And it's like a drop of water that falls into a pool of water. And now once you look at the universe from that kind of a perspective, now you have doors that are open to you. And one of the doors, using that model, is that you can change the movie.
I was asking about religion versus spirituality. That's because religion.
Oh, spirituality. Okay. So Batman is saying in the movie to his girlfriend, it's not who I am that defines me. It's what I do that defines who I am. It's what you do, and spirituality then is how you do it. The quality or intensity, the sacredness of it, the amounts of intensity of punctuating psyche into matter and making it so. We can talk about ethics and morals and the distinction between an ethical man and a moral man. I am a very moral man. I would not presume to make judgment on another. I won't do that for myself, but I can't determine what else someone is doing. You know, I used to do it this way. I'd say the minister says to his flock, is this house white or is this house brown? And the correct answer is yes. It's true. All of it.
Well, I mean, how could it be possible in an example, though?
Well,
I mean, I understand things are relative. But
okay, your brain, this brain right here, this mind, is there to make all your beliefs true. I wouldn't have seen it if I hadn't believed it.
Right.
So you go to religion for fellowship to reinforce a certain belief. Everybody there is just a little bit different than you. Each of us approach the thing just a little bit differently. That's why it's, let me get you a physical model. Hold one sec right here. Oh yeah, this is a good model. This one here was given to me by a friend in Lexington. And what it is an hourglass going from the past into the future, or it's two brains with your thoughts going back and forth between the one and the other to create a closed system of laws and behaviors. And all of us are different. Each one of us, I would say there are possibly as many religions as there are human beings. I find it interesting, Christianity does the very thing that distinguishes a Christian from a Muslim. They make judgment. They're not supposed to make judgment. That's seen philosophy. Christ went to India, studied the Upanishads and previous technologies, came back as a holy man. He had older concepts of the seen gospels. And to make a judgment on another person is not what an Essene would even dream to do. He knows, that they don't know. They can only speak for themselves. For me, it's this one. And each of us, it actually is different. The laws of the universe are different. I have watched, and I've said this before on your show, a woman rip a car door off. That's impossible to save her daughter, in a flame or whatever.
Right.
And how can she do that? The bone in her body isn't as strong as the steel. That's impossible. And yet, we all know that it's possible. How do you know that? That's because imagination is reality. Before we had 3D printers, it was the replicator on Star Trek. The trouble with tribbles.
Right.
That's how it all started, man.
One more thing on this is I always kind of looked at religion as being the brain explaining spirituality, if you will. A logical, if you will, representation of the illogical.
Religions, are fellowship. They're about fellowship, moral codes of ethics, rules of conduct, the way your parents raised you. And in Iraq, it's quite different than women's suffrages here in America. And who's right? Yes. And that's why sometimes open borders and the idea of homogenizing the milk, you might be losing something in the process. Oh, you do. The good bacteria that go in your gut.
Plus, from what I understand homogenizing is they chop up the long fat molecules so that they homogenize into the milk rather than float on the top.
That's right. In a suspension. That's right. It has to do with 40 nanometers and something not changing the optics and not foaming out in sediment.
Yeah, but the problem is now you are corrupting the molecule that was naturally there.
There you go. So that's probably why the Germans have their standardized extracts and why we have full spectrum here over in America. The metaphor. I'm just kidding.
Well, actually, what I try to do is I try to take both. I'll have a full spectrum one, and I'll have the. Anyway, let me,
I'll have a lap dance, and then I'll go over here and do the penance. And, I have no trying to keep the balance of my essence in right livelihood, what they call in the tracks 4x4, working your purpose to be distinguished from intent, which is coming from a place of wounding. Wounds are actually, my wife left me and I don't trust women anymore. That belief, that wound, that is a type of gift that distinguishes you uniquely in your behavior and the way you're going to act in something and what you need to do. Like Bruce Lee said, become the water. You containerize it, and now you can do something with it. You can drink it.
All right, I want to reiterate, people can ask questions along the way here. If you're in the chat room, just type it in caps or something, and be patient. I guess if you could wave your hand to get my attention. Because
if they good questions, I'd be happy to do this. Let's do a couple just to let them know how good I am or whatever.
So ask that up in there, and I want to get one in. I was pondering, when I drive the truck, I have a lot of time, and I've been doing some 600-mile days, so I was a lot of time to think.
Yeah.
And we've talked many times, I should say you've brought up, and I've listened about cavitation, and thinking of using the physical model of the cavitation that they use to have missiles go underwater, torpedoes. They create an air, let's call it envelope, which means that it can go faster through the water and so on. I came up with that idea, and I said, what if we were able to do cavitation to create a, let me just use these bubble around the solid object going in faster than light. So if you can create cavitation,
you mean a wormhole? You mean CERN and working out with Fermi Labs there in Chicago?
but wormhole to me would be like creating let's say an opening and going through. But the problem is, of course, the physics involved in going through it would tear you apart. But somehow,
not necessarily. And actually, the movie, what was it called that he went into a wormhole and was talking to his daughter through throwing books out of a bookshelf? What was that called? Interlinear. Or Interstellar. Interstellar is number 6 in all-time movies that are scientifically accurate.
That was a pretty good movie. I was really
its concepts were accurate regarding the relationship of time and space. You see, everything that we do in our old schools of physics dealt with time-space. We did measurements in time and space, and we had certain assumptions that before we even started on the theorems and all of the rest of it, called basic assumptions, like the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. And then everything was round and we had gravity and so on. Then when you started to suggest that maybe that's not true, that there are things that are closer to each other than you can draw a straight line in because space is curved, now you can prove with certain mathematics the Earth's flat. Which is it? Well, it's yes, because it's all of the above. And if you look at it this way, these doors are available to you. And if you look at it that way, you can fall off over the edge.
I've thought about that in listening to Lord of the Rings. I've listened to that book many times, and they talk about where the west. I can't think of what the island was where we'll call them gods lived. They bent the earth so they couldn't reach it. Okay, the curve of the earth. So what if we were going around the earth and we're going through the earth would be going through a space-time curve, going around the earth.
Well, see, the earth actually doesn't circle the sun. The sun is screaming through space at Mach 12 and a half, going through space, and the earth trying to catch up with it in a little spiral. And it looks like we're going around the sun, but we're actually tagging behind it in a spiral. And if you realize the mathematics involved in that, now you realize, yeah, it changes everything. It's
see that.
All of a sudden, now we have a different concept of what space-time is.
If we had a tail that was behind us, you could see it. It would leave a spiral as the sun goes through. That's it. The
Earth's flat. Sorry, but see, it's not flat. It's actually There is no such thing as gravity. The Earth sucks.
All right, I said a question, so I got stuff stacking up here. So let me get to it.
Listen, I'm having fun because the whole thing is that physics is in a quandary place now, as it is becoming a lot like religions are. And when I'm reminded of the closed systems of possibilities with the hourglass turning into the out of. That was Alan Dean Foster. That's an excellent.
I'm going to use that in a song, Into the Out of.
Into the out of.
Let me get this. I'm going to have to, excuse me for.
No, it's fine. Just do your old man thing.
What about magic as a form of interdimensional physics?
It is. That's magic is the art of changing consciousness will. It's an art form. That means there are many roads to Rome. In just, I don't know, in metalworking. There's all different ways of doing it. And textile and watercolors and poetry and art is a process. It's not a product. It is a way of being. It is the art of changing consciousness at will. The Jesuits had a great one. They used cat o' nine tails. They whip themselves. And at some point they get in this altered state where they can do things you can't do in conscious waking state. And what I'm doing now is I'm starting to map them. So right over here, our ability in guessing is 400 times what it would be normally in this state. And over here, I can, for a brief moment, have the strength of 10 people. This, and 2 weekends from now, I'm going to be up on Vancouver Island. I'm inviting everybody to something very, very classic that's happening up there. I'm going to do the ESP class that I did in Chicago, where I take psychics and I improve them. But or if you're not psychic, I can make you a psychic where you can think with your gut instinct. That's what it is. It was sealed protocol number 1. And but this new thing I'm doing. So 80 years ago, Chan Te-chung, a Chan Buddhist, moved into Victoria and began a Sangat around Tai Chi with Yang, double Yang style. He was world champion. And he used to go down into Seattle in the 60s, the 50s and the 60s, and he would teach form of Tai Chi over Dr. Bestier's Naturopathic School of Medicine in Wallingford. And I had like almost 18 years of Hungar from John Leon. He had Bruce Lee, Skip Ellsworth, Fred Williams, the big Black Panther guy, and me, and it's kite school. And when I came out of grad school, I started working with Boeing before I started the SEAL program. And this man came down and he saw something different in me. And so he taught Tai Chi to me differently. And by the end of the second year, I was able to change my perception of time with breath control. This is described as one of the protocols I train Navy SEALs with. But it allowed me, in the 8th movement of Tai Chi, which is double sword. That's where you use 2 swords to extend your chi. And I went to Peking and did my thing and found out that Chan Te-chung then died. His class made the cover of National Geographic. They were doing Tai Chi out on the water back in the 50s. And when he died, his primary student started teaching Tai Chi, and then he died. And today it's a woman, and she's having me come up to bring the teachings back to that Sangat. It's not mine.
Is that in the August 18th?
That'll be the 19th. That's the 19th one, not the August 18th. Oh. That's the 19th one in Parksville, which is near Victoria. And I'm going to do brain drivers. I'm going to be doing biofeedback. And I'm going to be doing Tai Chi and showing them a technique, giving it back to the Sangat that belongs there. This was a teaching of Chan Te-chung. I was just a one of his students that I got the gift from it. I'm just going to give it back to the sun god. And it's not mine. It's oh, and that's another thing. That's a good lesson. One does not learn Tai Chi. One studies it. Because Tai Chi, like science and religion, is unique for each of us. And everybody does it slightly differently. And because of that, you take a teaching, mine, yours, whatever, and integrate it into your own purpose. And that's what I'm doing now, is leaving some footprints for others to pick up and write better books than mine.
Okay.
I chose not to be a magician, like a leader, and I let Berlin and Breeze and those guys do their thing. I have something more important to do, which is to leave some footprints in the sand. That, in Hebrew, is called Gimel, the camel. It's 5. It's for light, life, love, liberty, and law.
How's that one for hermetic teaching?
There we go. You got the alliteration in there, so you'll work. Let me get some more of these questions.
Sure.
Before I get lost here. This sounds like it'll be a quick one. I don't know the answer, but it sounds like it might be an easy one. Ask Ellen.
Yes. The answer is yes.
What is the?
I'm doing it like Johnny Carson.
Yeah.
I put it up to my head and I say yes.
What is the dot in the middle of the sun symbol in astrology mean?
What is the what?
The dot in the middle of the sun symbol in astrology. Does it signify?
The dot is nuit. You had it because you knew it. the point, like the pointless forest, and the expansity of everything. The yin within the yang. It's the inner one coming in to the one going out. You know, wax on, wax off. Sort of as a metaphor.
All right, so I have no idea what your answer is.
You can find that in Theosophy, Blavatsky. That's a theosophical concept.
All right, I know, but the answer to the question of the dot in the middle of the sun.
Well, it's got many answers. I mean, that's just one of them. I'm not the bottom line.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not. Yeah, I'm one school of thought.
All right, Sharon here is saying that I live for Doc's podcast. Would like to meet you sometime. We meet him sometime.
Yeah, I'm easy. People come out, do a workshop. Bring me to Chicago, sorry, and have me do workshops. I love travel. I can't do it without doing things, so I have to sing for my dinner. But I'm good, and I would love to offer what I can, so that it gives you something more that you've already gotten with other things as well. We're all part of it. I'm just lead scout. I'm archetypal. And this is an important concept. Nothing is original. That's why they share Nobel Prizes. You know, there's always two people in different parts of the world who have the same idea. So it isn't like, wow. I'm more like or would like to be thought of as a Will Rogers, you know, a voice from the country, perspective of, you know, that has some one-liners. Good luck with that, Rick. But that's, you know, adding my part to the betterment and growth.
You know, talk about this flat Earth thing. As I see the picture of a flat Earth, according to this, if you were to go, let's say, in the center of the flat Earth and went around the North Pole, according to the graphical representation, it would be a very short trip. However, if you went down to around Antarctica and flew around the whole disk, it would be a huge, huge, long trip.
Well, you could do this with Elysium and the concept of space and how we're going to do it in space. Elysium is a movie. You can check it out. And the way, you know, you see yourself on a flatness. I mean, you're in a curved space. The thing is, it's actually all of it, predicated on your assumed truths and your definitions. And these are why we call them memes, and has led to a whole new area of study in psychology, becoming a little harder. And what do they call it? Cybernetic anthropology. The book I read is that, what is it? Brain Symbol and Human Experience by Laughlin, the Aquila McManus, University of Chicago. Big stuff, buddy. A lot of important things happening in Chicago right now. The studies of this kind and the idea of Dr. Charles Muses, others, Edward Everett Horton. These guys were the old schools, and I was blessed to have them. Now I'm studying some of the new ones, and what I'm really loving is I'm meeting some millennials that get me. And once they get that practical aspect, which is missing in their education, now we're going to have some dark minds out there that are weapons. Kids are able to do things I can't. They're gifted. I'm very pleased and honored to see that happening. And I remind everybody, Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young, teach your children well.
I'm trying to read in here.
I'm trying to stress that I think our single most important natural resource is our children. And we're squandering it seriously right now in education. And so that's why I've put up this download library so that you can have a feast of the gods.
My question is, have you ever read Flatland, The Romance of Man's Dimensions?
No, I haven't read
1884? Okay.
Yeah. There's
have you worked
Lilliputians. I love the Lilliputian concept. And John Orwell.
Have you worked with Doc Pete Peterson?
With whom?
Doc Pete Peterson.
I'm not getting the middle first name. I got Doc, and I don't know what the...
P-E-T-E. Pete Peterson.
Oh, Pete Peterson. I've heard that name, but I've met lots of Petersons.
It's a good radio name. Hey, how you doing, everybody? Pete Peterson here, playing the hits for you live.
Hey, I did, when I did radio a long time ago at KTAC, I was Alan Richards. I was on KMPX.
That's a good name. I can see that.
Yeah.
Alan Richards here, playing the tunes for you.
I was broadcasting at 800 micrograms somewhere up in the Redwoods, up on Venus, when I left
Venus.
Left Stones. Oh, it was an introduction to the Rolling Stones.
All right, another question's about you with S.L. McGregor Mathers.
Yeah, Samuel McGregor Mathers, Golden Dawn, late 1800s into 1900. Had William and Wolfe. He had unbelievable scholarship in that lodge. And I mean unbelievable. That's where the very finest of the very finest, when William and Westcott was doing the Sefer Yetzirah and other things, doing translations, they had geniuses. Sax Rohmer was doing Ming and Flash Gordon. It was wonderful. Dion Fortune. Dr. Tavener series and the Demon Lovers and Psychic Self-Defense. That's a pretty good concept, how to defend yourself psychically. Today we're acknowledging the idea that medicine's essentially broken, and now we're using pharmaceutical mushrooms and psilocybin for healing spiritual wounds. And it's like a metaphor. And so medicine has now gone. I've got a friend in New York, has written on psychedelic mushrooms and the new directions of medicine and healing oneself, not only just physically, but spiritually. And there's things going on conceptually that as man is now growing into something more, those concepts are emerging as useful tools in the way you would take disadvantages and see them as blessings and tools in a toolbox. Something you can do that nobody else can do because they're not wounded like you are.
I'm reading more about Pete Peterson. Was interviewed by Project Camelot. He was an instrument maker. He also lived in Oregon, so that's why this person.
Well,
was
okay. Carrie was here just a couple days ago. Her interview on me is the Magus that came in from out of the cold. I want to still feel her in, man. Well, how did he put it? Holy moly. You got to love movies. I feel that anything that stimulates you is food for the gods. And it is going to make you healthy emotionally.
So what about this volcanism? This volcanism, you were saying you had volcanism. What was the, where was that? I can look that up to show to people that you think that's when volcanism is starting the fires in Oregon.
Oh, these fires that we've had, I had them less than a quarter of a mile from my home. We were on standby. The power went down, getting ready for evacuation. And then, of course, the second Act 2, Phase 3 came in, where people are raiding uninhabited homes, robbing them, criminal element, werewolves out of Wolf Creek. Just tweakers running around naked. There's, who knows what it is, man. It's a full-range circus in everything around here. And yes, Oregon has a perchance to have antelope and the bhagwan, but I watched the series on that because I knew some people involved. Swan Gardner, my friend up in Canada, was also known as Devaraj II. Shri Prem, that woman that ran the camp here in Oregon, was militant, and but so were the locals. What do you expect going on there, man? It's a clash of ideologies and belief systems, and the granolas throwing their Pilates balls in the air, and the old timers pulling their shotguns out to shoot them. It's all a mixture of different generations and different cultures not actually working well when one tries to become militant with the other.
And this is actually from last year, talking about the Oregon fires. The only reference I have to Oregon's fires is a YouTube video, which I can't play.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the Oregon fires here. Carrie has a thing on Project Camelot she did, where I took her down in the jet boat. It was really cool. There's Hell's Gate is this big channel where the walls go up maybe about 200 feet. You've seen Rooster Cogburn and some others leap off those things, and River Wild. But that's Hell's Gate, and that's as far down as we went. We didn't go down to Glees or any of that. But I'll tell you what, the fire were right down to the edge of the water, and they were dripping down those cliffs into the water. It was real creepy. We got pictures. I got sick from the toxic air, and Terry got to write an article where I have some Landsat that I've got from Suspicious Observer. It's a guy that does some tracking, and it looks like there were we had earthquakes here 2 days before the serious fires, and it looked like there was magma as part of what's starting some of the fires in Northern California. Now, that's because the San Andreas Fault is slipping and sliding just like the blob.
Well, now, how can you? I'm not prepared to, while you were talking.
An explosive wildfire taking a stand of trees right
heard that noise.
There it is.
While you're,
just like the movies, huh?
While you're talking, I'll look for this, but why do you think, what is the physical mechanism that when...
The Earth's expanding. Right now...
Well, wait a minute. I mean, this is something different, though. When you look at the pictures of where these fires have happened, you see all the green trees, everything's fine, and you see the houses and cars completely, like, melted to the ground. I mean, how does that work out that the trees survive?
That's another conspiracy that I don't know. Whether they're also... Listen, how did Merlin... Like chemtrails. Every single thing you can possibly imagine is true and more. That means plausible deniability, like the shootings in Las Vegas. There's 6 different things going on all at the same time. How do you isolate a variable? When, we got an opportunity here. Let's shoot some people to get them to be afraid of marijuana in schools. I'll tell you what I will tell you. This is something you need to hear. I was one of the people that developed the voice-to-skull technologies in the 70s. Now, this is a possible important tool. I could place a sound anywhere in space I want to, including outer space. You hear it in your head without air. So they call it synthetic telepathy. It's in the 0.3 to 3 gigahertz microwave band. And what they did is they started beta. I'm going to give you a little scenario, just a possibility. And we'll do Merlin, where he said, anything not specifically forbidden is mandatory. If it's possible, you can count on it. We're going to talk now about 5G towers and smart meters as an end weapon. And this is the truth of it. And the bottom line is, it doesn't matter if you opt out. I'll tell you why. Basically, it started in the prisons. The prisons were rampant with the inmates on opiates. And so they started testing antipsychotics. Zoloft, Prozac, da-da-da-da-da, oop-de-doo. And now the prisons are rampant with that drug. So that was beta test 1. Beta test 2, let's give it to our children. And they take 10 children, and they give them Prozac, and 2 of them are going to be slightly unstable. And so whenever there was a shooting in a high school, the first law enforcement and the first news reporting that it would show up always had several things happening. The kid said, I heard voices in my head. And there's a second shooter, and I never get found. Oh, yeah, there was more gunshots over there and over there. You know, that's at first before 5 hours later when CNN or whatever gets their spin on it. And the kid has a second shooter, which is probably something paramilitary, that taps him with scopolamine. Now you have a weapon, just like in Batman. And if the smart meter 5G tower is required to carry the V2K, voice to skull. Okay, then you have scopolamine, you have the Zoloft, and Houston, we have ignition. Now, let's put that on every house in America so that I can have an AI, let's call it a third generation D-Wave technology or something, let's say, fine-tune that down to DNA specific. Who do you want to target, the mother or the daughter? Oh, let's do the daughter this time. And because they have DNA recognition, they can target individuals in your house using the smart meter and the 5G tower. Now, once they've done that, they no longer need law enforcement. Because guess what? That person will do almost anything you want them to. And if you don't have it on your thing and you've opted out and you're not being bothered by it, you can count on your neighbor being on Zoloft. And that's where it's going as an endgame weapon. These little bullets that they have, you know, they're little drones. He throws it up in the air and he's sitting there with a little phone and, you know, bang, blows up the dummy on Ted. You can jam that. That's one that can be jammed. This concept with 5G towers, University of Pittsburgh, it's Pennsylvania, down south further, worse, has passed a law where it's dangerous for you to go in the woods where you don't have cell phone coverage. And so now the forests are deemed unsafe. And the reason I go to a forest is I get away from this nonsense. And that's now becoming a law where you can't because it's not safe for you if you don't have your cell phone to call for help. Now, all of this is a bunch of BS. And the kids might become world authorities in thumb wrestling. You know, they can probably do that. But the millenniums, in all their brilliance and abilities, and they are way better than we are not practical.
All right, I'm looking at this. Can you see this photo?
Yeah.
How could these homes? I mean, I realize they're all wood homes, so of course they'll be destroyed. And
you're doing California. Yeah, that might be a directed energy beam that's different than lava because, well, now we have an opportunity. Let's do a beta test on our weapon. Well, that's most likely what's going on.
Yeah, I know. I'm having a, you know, it's not like these people are moral. I got, you know, because I'm not defending them and all that, but it's like.
Not moral.
I'm just saying, like, I have a hard time believing that. Because let's test this weapon, and okay, we'll erase a large part of it in California as a test. I mean, I didn't even know what to think anymore. People easily believe that. They're like, yeah, it was.
Well, there's a lot of walk-ins out there. You know, they're not home, huh? They're not real. There's, they're not even there. I mean, you know, I love my girlfriend and I love her folks. But they're offended when I start to talk about the possibility that 9/11 was an inside job. And when I say that, I can absolutely prove it is. It was a Mossad weapon. The Mossad didn't do it, but they, dealing with fullerenes, that darker side of fullerenes, put deuterium in it, you use Lockheed's teleportation laser, and now you have a weapon with no forensics. And the way Building 7 dropped, you know, by that 600-foot solid steel beam, and as it's falling in free fall, it is not dissolving. It is not heat from jet fuel. There's only one thing that'll do that at that temperature, and that's a plasma. And so it was that Building 7 was a beta test.
All right, so plasma, I got with that. I got with that. Now let me just look at the. I mean, I'll get back to the plasma because one of the things is that I'm trying to find. I'm interested in truth, and I don't rule anything out. You know.
Well, you can. You know
but,
the truth.
But I just.
You want the truth, you can't have it.
But I just don't accept statements like, "Well, it's a direct energy beam from space," and it's
It's not. It's not. It's probably a forest fire. It's probably one that got so exceptionally hot that the material that caught on fire exploded is because it wasn't wood. And let's go downhill on that one. You know, all those homes in there, you know, and what is it, building code styles?
No.
Not in my lifetime I would live in anything like that. I'm up here in the country. I've got an acre of land. I'm on the second floor in a 4-story with gun turrets.
No, I've asked somebody. I've asked somebody who has a little experience in forest fires. I actually don't remember the source.
Yeah.
All right, and I asked them, and they said, "Well, here's the thing: is when you have these fires, they throw up ashes, fire into the air, they get blown, they land down. Now, if you look at this picture, according to what this person was telling me, when the ashes land down, the only thing that's really flammable are the houses, the roofs, let's say, and then it burns up. The trees have water in them, so as the embers heat up the tree, the leaves in the trees, they also cool out. They put out the ember. And if the embers land on the cement or the blacktop, they will burn out as well because they can't set the blacktop on fire.
Not the houses. And the houses aren't even made with wood anymore. It's wood chip and some kind of composite that has a lower flame, you know.
So what I'm trying to come up with is a physics model that would explain this without having to go outside of the norm.
Yeah, conspiracy. Here's the problem with all of that, James. It's all probably true. That's how bad our society is today. It's the flame retardant. It's the ashes falling straight down. It's the fireman that loves a tree hugger. It's a guy with a new weapon he wants to try out. And it's probably, you know, who knows? And that's the bad news. There's probably a lot of stuff where we'll never really know what happened. Like, did, you know, Hitler actually die? And what I've been to Antarctica, so I know that history books aren't right. I've physically been there for the military. I've seen what I've seen. Caverns, a mile high with weather, light inside them. How does that work? That's what my job was bioluminescence. There's a bacterium that's eating off mold, and it creates light, and it's like, it's not the same as being on the surface of the Earth, but I'm guessing in your lifetime you're not going to be able to live on the surface of this Earth.
Well, there's a question coming in the chat room of about Kecksburg UFO, if you know anything about that.
Carol Rosen lives down the street. I did a tour at Broom Lake and met Krill at level 8. What do you want to know? I mean, I don't know. I can talk about what I do know, which is not much. If you want to know, do aliens exist? My comment back would be, how could they not? And once you realize that, it's wide open spaces. I don't think an alien's quite what you might think it is. It might be black goo, you know, like what we call black mold. Mold in the forest, attacking White House and the marble. Yeah, black mold, black slime molds that thrive in radiation down in galactic center. You couldn't even live in galactic center. I think that's why Earth is out here on the rim. You know, Sol is way out here, way out from the sun and galactic center where all these gamma rays. And what we have now is an atmosphere that protects us, or did. And what's happening is that the sun has gone into a solar minimum, and so particles that would normally be absorbed by the sun are going around the sun, hitting the Earth, causing the Earth to expand, and we're in the end of days, according to the Aborigines. And the Aborigines, which are even way more accurate than Hopi and the Clovis cultures with Koryak and Inuit. You know, skies change. Yeah, right. Okay, so Aborigines are saying before 2020 and by 2024, those of you that still remain are going to wonder how you made it through there. That's what they're saying. Now, is that true? I don't know.
Speaking of the Hopi, there's a question about the ant people.
Yeah, the Ant-Man was Lloyd Pye. He had a little skull. They found it down in Mexico in the 1800s. They have big skulls still, you know, Nephilim that eat humans. That they talk about that in down right there in the Mexican border where the Hopi are, and Shiprock. And there was a skull, a large skull found, dug up in 1820 in Pennsylvania. There's the pictures, there's the art, went to the Smithsonian. It's probably now in the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. Why? Well, turns out that it wasn't about UFOs back then. It was this Methodist minister that lost his flock to Joseph Smith in a thing called the Mormon religion. That religion was formed on a close encounter, and this minister dogged John Smith to get his flock back for more than 40 years, and his two sons are the ones that ran the Smithsonian, and my guess is they dumped that in the Atlantic Ocean to try to vet their...
I mean, there's another explanation for the Mormon religion. It's invented by Joseph Smith, period. You don't need to have aliens.
Not, I know that if I would be a Denonite, you know,
those plates that he had supposedly that were interpreted for him, they had pictures of them, and other people later on who can understand Egyptian realized that they were actually, Egyptian scripts, books of the dead or whatever, have nothing to do with what he said. And then when that day came out, they got put away, and no one's seen them again because they got busted. I mean, I think to me, it's all from that's all a hoax.
Innocent the First did in the year 1000, when the Catholic Church and the teachings of Christ went in opposite directions. How did George Carlin put it? God has everything, but he needs more money.
Well, that's the difference between religion and spirituality.
Well, I'm trying to say something. Whether it's hokey pokey, it's about marketing and charismatics or not. In terms of values, Mormons have some interesting concepts that are uniquely different than the Arabs and or the Christians and or the Buddhists. My parents were atheists. I believe in God. I came to that myself. That's my right, just like your right is to not believe in them. But my parents sent me to Missouri Synod Catechism to armor me for in high school.
And I went there too.
What's that?
I went to Missouri Synod
Catechism as well.
Actually, confirmation, they called it.
To protect myself from these religious zealots that were trying to do missionary camps across the world in Africa with little brown babies going down the Nile River as murder on the Nile, little brown babies. But I think that there's something more going on here, and you start with the way you were raised. And my parents I was very blessed. I had a good childhood. Dad he taught me everything. And I was a Boy Scout. Roger. I tried to be able to do everything and try to do it right. And I was gifted, but they didn't accentuate that. I didn't get that accentuated until old man DuPont. He came to my high school graduation, and then he came to Washington State University and took me back east to do graduate work. And then the rest of my history is well known in terms of where I've been and what I've done for everybody. And I have no clue. I'm not a spook. I'm a nerd. I'm gifted. I'm blessed. And I'm not that big a deal. I'm spiritual. I was initiated to Sharon Singh. I'm a Satangi. I meditate. I train the mind. That is one of my saving graces. you notice I'm all over the place, and yet I come right straight back into where we're going with the idea that the quality in which you go about your personal beliefs is what we call spirituality. It is the level above. A physical plane is IQ, physical world. EQ is the emotional world, how you feel about the physical. And so in a holographic universe, it could be seen as the same information, but with more detail or resolution, like how you feel about it. And then there's the emotional plane, the archetypal, where I seem to hang out. And there's 4 more planes. You talk with Timothy Leary as a way of trying to model the various geometries and neurotransmitters, which is what I'm doing. I started 45 years ago with biofeedback and learning how to listen to certain sounds in my body to control heart rate, pulse, and respiration. And now I'm doing the same thing with neurotransmitters and being able to control several of them at one time. And that has taken me to a whole new level of what I'm able to do.
Sounds like Bene Gesserit training from Dune.
Oh, yeah. That's Stillman, Fremen. Yeah, well, I don't drink my sweat yet, but that's in there. Oh, the bottle. That part of the Fremen. Frank Herbert wrote that in 1965. Well,
it was published. 65.
Yeah, 1968, yeah. And David Bowie did his movie, The Man Who Fell to Earth, in 1967. 1 year before Dune was out. I love the ending and the way he's making love to the girl and he shows he's an alien by taking out his contact.
But in that movie, there was a good point there that he advanced technology so fast that people rebelled against him because last year's technology became obsolete, trying to raise money so he can go back to his planet. And that's what's happening now. And then, Galaxy.
I am deeply impressed that you even have any detail on that movie. Good for you.
I know
that's impressive. I'm impressed with that because when Harry Flowers and this old burn-up rock star living with 2 gay women, that was a very cool movie too. Performance, Mick Jagger, 1960.
How about Liquid Sky? I think there was a movie.
Liquid Sky is where the shooting galleries with all that aliens up in the eaves living off the adrenaline.
I know, which is coming out now about the adrenochrome. The adrenochrome is this big thing now, and it's just funny how these things came out years ago. But before I forget this, because Justin has posted this several times, I'm going to have to, I don't know if I'm saying this right, the sigil, S-I-G-I-L, of God drawing as a blueprint/model for technology, realm/portal technology.
So you can find that in Butler and the Magician, and we'll give you instructions on how the sigils originally work. Basically, or you can go to the Bremlin magic. A sigil is a geometric wiggle. It's like got a straight line, a little curve here, and a whoop-de-doop-doo, da-da-da, and it's unique. It's called a sigil. And they come from magic squares. Magic squares might be 3 numbers across, 4 numbers across, 5 numbers across, 20 numbers across, different ones for Venus and Mars and, Neptune. And each one has a uniqueness to it because if you add all the numbers this way and that way and that way, they're all the same. That's what called it a magic square. And then you spell the demon's name out and draw a line from where A is to Z, Azeroth, whatever. You get this wiggle. That's where the sigil came from. Now, where did the magic square come from? Well, that was Babylonian periods in the Upanishads, where they had star maps. And you can go to the Cave of Dreams. They have this little bison that's on the wall. It's got a bunch of dots around his eyes. Closer inspection, you realize that's a star map. If you go south about 200 miles down near Croatia, and the other cave that's down there, the star map is in reverse. We've been here before. We've had space flight before. Clovis had space flight. And they...
What gives me the wiggles is the whole concept of
Yeah, that's
writing
where those
out.
came from. That
I know,
comes from
but
a magic square or a Babylonian star map where you draw the name of the demon.
I know. This is what I'm trying to say is what gives me the wiggles is somebody sitting down trying to draw out the name of a demon. What are you, nuts? I mean, that's like, why on earth would you want to contact a demon? I mean,
because Raziel said, quote, Enoch, if you have the name of the demon, you have control of him.
Yeah, I think that's malarkey.
Well, no. This is an angel now talking to a man. I gotta give it honor.
An angel.
As a technology,
Yeah.
as a kind of technology, like the Greek did stories like Psyche at the Well of Souls as one of the 22 stories in the big city. That's my book on tarot. I'm doing the magical and ritual use of metaphor, archetypal gods in daily living. And you're a complex individual with probably 6 different stories going on. If you know the story, you know how it ends. Is that how you want it to end? That's called path working. And so you can use metaphor. And that's Gregory Bateson. What is your metaphor? To serve your paradox. You got to have a pair of ox out in my meadow.
You got a pair of ox, or is it a paradox?
Well, there you go. It's all a metaphor.
Yeah.
I just like to mess with people because if you're getting even half of what I'm saying, you're doing better than most. Good luck. I move right along, and I have intent behind my purpose. And I'm not very good yet.
Well, maybe your wisdom can help me here, Doc. As I lay down on my couch.
What's up?
Here's the problem I'm having today. Now, this is something that's really acute with me in recent times, okay? Is that I hear people say things, whether it be politically, whether it be metaphysically, whether it be alternative consciousness. People just say stuff, right? And somehow it's okay. Now, granted, it's okay to say stuff, but in the realm of finding truth, they say this stuff, and it's like real. And I'm going, you have to have a pathway to reality. It's not just real because you say it. There's a pathway. I mean, people can float, right? But there's a pathway to the ability to being able to float. You just can't, it just doesn't exist because you say it does.
Oh, yeah, you can, actually. It's a multiverse. Lots of possibilities. The thing that most people miss is that each of our universes is actually mutually exclusive. Think of it as membrane theory, the kind we use with Bessel functions. You've got 2 blobs. One looks like this, and the other one's like that. This is you, and this one's me, and we're kind of floating through the universe. And as we float through the universe, we kind of encounter each other a little bit. 3rd little thing comes off, and a 4th thing, and then go moving on. We're closed systems. And when we interface with each other like we're doing right now, and while all the listeners are doing right now, a hive kind of Sense8, that's a good concept. The one that's on Netflix right now, Sense8, that series is absolutely worth watching as a concept of metaphor. And the newest movie is what is actually happening with millenniums right now. They're changing genetically. They're capable of doing things we couldn't. The bad news is they're trying to stop it, just like in this movie I just went to see about the dark thoughts, or whatever the movie was called. It's about children that have abilities, and they have different levels of their ability. And each of you is a closed system and is going to get there because I've gotten there. If I got there, you're going to get there. It has nothing to do with time. It's a promise, because I am you, and you are me. Here we go.
And we're both the walrus. I knew that was coming. Yeah.
Listen, man, the Beatles knew it. It's all part of the original teachings that came out of India and the Upanishads, and it's where the East meets the West, and then something happens. And that's where I started my philosophy, was in Theosophical Society, Quest Bookstore. And then I went to Rosicrucians and Ojai and Rosecroix. I actually taught at Rosecroix. Quest Books, Theosophical Society. I went to, I met Pierre Vilayet Khan and some others over on Orcas Island at Camp Indralaya, another retreat for the Theosophical Society. I'm going up to Vancouver Island in 2 weeks to do another journey back to those areas as my childhood, where I grew up, and what essentially set foundations for who I am today. And I'm excited because there's an awakening occurring out here. And with it, an empowerment, which I just completed a paper. Did I send you a copy of the Illusion of Reality? I thought I did. Yes, I did. No, I didn't.
I don't think so.
Okay, I will send that to you. Anything I send to you, all these things, just put them for free on your. I think the Illusion of Reality talks about what happens at the moment and the moment just after death with consciousness. And I can tell you what happens from a physics point of view. Doesn't mean I'm right any more than physics is right, because most laws in physics don't last more than, I don't know, 20 years. You know, we have a type of, we started out with modern physics, we call it quantum mechanics, and then it was quantum consciousness. And here's the problem with quantum consciousness. Heisenberg threw a little, bay leaf into the stew. Got to remove it, because it basically states the more you know about one thing, the less you know about something else. And so you can only get so fine in your constructs.
Well, see, how I spiritually would say that is that the second higher levels of consciousness is so far beyond our comprehension that the more we try,
I'm already there. So good luck with that concept, because if I can do it, you can do it. Dendrites on a submolecular level.
But I don't think the people are gone that far. I think that if you go far enough up, it's so beyond your comprehension that you have to come up with metaphors to make it. And the more
that's the purpose of metaphor. Your paradigm.
But the more accurate you make the metaphor, the less actual it is describing what you're metaphorically describing. So the more accurate you try to make it, the less accurate it is.
Well, that's in quantum mechanics. Now, in holographic systems, instead of measuring space and time, what you're measuring is information and the resolution of information. Fractal math, the way it goes down in generators like Mendelbrot, Julia, or May pattern, where you have the way the structure reproduces itself. And if the structure is this size, the next structure is this size, not this size, it's this size. In other words, there's a relationship of the one to the other and stepstones. And that was described by Timothy Leary in his neurologic circuits, and is the system I use, like Aleister Crowley used Liber. I'm going to use neurologic circuits going down from the first neurologic circuits. Fifth one is your dimethyltryptamine, the chill. Highest one is special K. There you go, ketamine. Now, it's important that you realize the distinction between drugs and neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are different than ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is 5-alpha. Well, they're using lots of different forms of it, like 5-alpha dimethyltryptamine. They have N, N-hyphen dimethyltryptamine. They have, it has many different forms, like lysergic acid diethylamide. LSD is a toxin. And what happens when you take LSD is your body freaks out. It goes, oh, there's a toxin entering the body. That toxin is addressed immediately by lysergic, the release in your brain of lysergic acid amide. And the next 20 hours, hallucinations is a response from your own brain chemistry. And what that chemistry is about, the lysergic acid amide, is the aha moment. When you go, and you see how to connect one dot with another. And if you can do that at will, that means you can change the movie. And if you do that, you punctuate it with the chill with dimethyltryptamine release, now you have two neurotransmitters involved, and you can take psyche into matter. And that's how you do it.
Okay, well, how about we get together and we make a little pile of money so we could pay bills and have more time for creativity.
I $50,000.
I'm not looking for money so I can. I'm not looking for money so I can wear gold chains. It's just that these people who talk about changing, people who talk about
Hunt brother. Listen,
people who talk about changing.
I did a ritual magic for $50,000, and I got it. It was a truck that drove over me.
I don't. Well,
you get it, but not quite the way you want it.
I mean,
like a hospital bill. It'll happen. It's the collapsing of realities and being in purpose, where you're in slots for 4x4, or you're ricocheting against walls and creating karma. You get there, but it doesn't matter if you're doing it for spiritual growth, because that's worth any cost.
My point is the people who talk about being able to create reality and all that are not in, let's say, the ideal reality at the moment themselves. So,
how did Tana put it?
So it'd be like this. It'd be like, physician, heal thyself, is what I say to people who talk about that.
Here, let's try it this way. Instead of healing thyself, how about one size doesn't fit all? And there's a distinction between health and healing. And in China, you don't pay your doctor when you're sick. You pay him for staying healthy. Oops, a different way of approaching the same door. Simon says you can go halfway to the door, and everybody thinks about the door, money, but actually it's about the journey. You never get there to the door. It's not about money. Never was.
Well, I'm using the term.
Any happier than you are.
I'm using the term in terms of a method of changing one's movie. Let's not use the word money. Let's just say a vehicle for changing one's movie.
But and being a materialistic girl, we'll go to what's her face instead. Yeah,
materialism would mean the goal of having the energy is for material gain.
Yeah, physical plane. But say there's emotional plane, spiritual plane.
Is having time to learn a gratuitous physical obsession?
Obsession.
I mean, having time.
To me, like possession as opposed to complex, where you have only one story going on. Possessed is the word in Jungian psychotherapy when there's only one story going on. And when you're complex, which is the other way, you can't get out of there that way. Can't get here from there. Yeah, and are we there yet? That part is complex or possessed. And there are very few people that are actually possessed. Most people are complex. They have more than one story. And that's a metaphor in Kabbalism that we now refer to as the tarot. The 22 different big stories in the city. And there's a story of Psyche at the Well of Souls, It has an ending. There's Euripides, going into Hades for after his girlfriend, and going into hell for her. There's stories. How do they end? That's the Greek comedy and the Greek tragedy. You got a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And what you want to do is do the hokey pokey and you shake it all about. And everybody does it a little bit differently. And I am very excited because I am on the eve, just like in the movies going down the Mekong Delta. We're going to say a little bit of can't get no satisfaction. Yeah, I miss parts of my life that I used to enjoy, and I'm in discovery in the new world. And really where the action is best is in the moment when it becomes sacred. And if you can do that, even for a brief moment, that's what it's all about. That's where it's all about. And you hit that, that's Chevy Chase in Gophers. I'll tell you, man, his billiards, it's a place where everything, the key word is flow. And there's all kinds of creepies out there. There's maggots on a psychic level, just like there is in the physical ground. That's what changes a ghost into a poltergeist. I mean, they got a deterioration of a thought form brought into psyche. I have, in my physics years, taken a piece of glass and using infrared scan can pick up the face of the bank robber in the glass. It's recorded in glass, infrared pattern in the glass, and you can do that metaphorically in other planes of a relationship. You can find meaning in everything. And that place of synchronicity is how your future timeline is talking to the moment. And if you're able to integrate somehow that moment, the future, and that moment, it literally changes your past. The cavitation ball is different. You've now moved to a different universe, subset. And what I'm doing is trying to find my sea legs and walk about. How did they do that in Crocodile Dundee? Belongs to Mick. The walkabout. I especially liked it in his survival training when he's cooking on the campfire, and he says, well, yeah, you can live on that, but I wouldn't eat that. And he pulls out his can and his can opener and eats his beans. I'm discovering new worlds that I have no words for at this point. That's what makes my writing and articulating something so challenging. I have friends that I think are better writers than me. Zen Gardner has been writing in these areas. His prose are better. I'm more of a physicist, so my interesting parts is I'm not a Faulkner. I'm a physicist writing. And so I have a way of seeing things that's unique that when added to your stable of metaphors might become a really good tool for you to integrate and study. And my systems are limited, and I'm growing in every moment. It's incredible. I feel I've been very blessed through these years. The writings in different areas of agriculture and physics, and now spiritual or metaphysical forms, including Hermetic Kabbalism. I mean, I'm like a man on fire. I'm inflamed. That's the word Aleister Crowley called it. Being inflamed, where you are consumed in your purpose. And I'm close. I'm publishing. I got 3 books coming out in the next 3 weeks, and I just put up more audiobooks from the courses I taught at Harvard. And so I'm going to leave some footprints. And it's really exciting to watch some of these kids taking it. Here's a website. This is a good website. Go to NASF.life. That's for North American Sustainable Agriculture. NASF.life. L-I-F-E. That is a millennium. And I have a talk on there on mycorrhizae, like the gut of Earth. That's the life form that is outside space-time, just like your gut is. It's a hierarchy of dialogue going on. And if you can learn how to sense with that, you're outside space-time. And it's a wonderful place to begin training the mind. And with it comes the universes that I'm now discovering. I have no way to even tell you. It's like 200 shades of gray, and it's just like photography and black and white. There's an art form to it where, how does she say that in NCIS? They're in Paris, and he shoots this woman in Paris, and she said, I'll bet I look prettier in black and white. And the screen goes from the color picture of her to the black and white, and you get the idea of what shades and that concept of art form is about. There's all kinds of discovery going on, and we need to start looking within, because that is where everything lies. Everything is inside you. It's just like, anytime I don't know something, I just go inside and there it is. Just hands it to me on a plate. It's smorgasbord, and it's wonderful. Everybody's different. Everybody does it a little differently. I started with journals, Ira Progoff and Honest Journaling. I think that's a good place to start. But you know, it's like taking a snapshot of the moment and then going back 20 years to your old diary, and it's like recreating that moment as a hologram in your brain, and it takes you right back to that moment. That's time travel, a form of time travel. And you learn how to navigate in those places. And that's one of the reasons why the Inuit and others would say your dream time and some forms of sleep have more content to reality than consciousness does. Imagine that.
Well, I've been doing some thinking, and I've been doing this show. I'm getting feedback here. I've been doing this show from since 2003.
I think that's wonderful, by the way. You should be very... Yeah.
And I've listened to Art Bell for many years prior to that. Sometime in the 90s, they came out in Chicago. And I've always, throughout my time, have been a little bit off, kind of out of the norm and interested in stuff. Working at nighttime radio in Chicago was always odd. You know, they talked about odd stuff. I mean, Art Bell was taking it to a new level. But when I'm sitting down and thinking about it, all the stuff that I've heard on Art Bell and on my show up to this point, I was trying to go back and think about something that actually happened. The way that, I mean, either predictions or, like, for example, whether they landed on the moon and all that. Nothing has ever been proven or happened in all those years. I mean, I've even dealt with Bible prophecy and Jesus' return. I've talked about that.
How's that working out in the sunlight with you right now? How long can you be out in the sunlight today? What color is the sun today?
Well, it's right now it's called night here.
Yeah, but the sun is white now. It's not yellow.
Yeah, it is a white. I would say.
Well, there's something that changed, huh?
I know, but see,
let's talk about the insect on the cow pie.
But let me go back to the white sun, right? It looks to me like the sun is whiter than I remembered it years ago. Okay, now that should be absolutely easy to prove because you have recordings of color. What would be the word? I forgot the word, but color spectrum of the sun, from 30 years ago. And we should go. Let's pull up that data and look at it, and then look at the data now and say, "Wow, look at the difference." Yeah. But it's not happening. There is no difference.
Oh, no.
Where? I mean, this is the frustration I have. Is that to me, it looks clearly like it is, but that should be so simple. There should be falling over ourselves with proof, and I don't see any. I mean, send me links. I'm happy to watch it, but all of it's subjective. It's all subjective.
I just took a snapshot of this moment, and then I'm going to get a second picture of you this time next year. Look at how fast you have come closer to the table than you ever been. You're a pretty conservative biker guy. You like intellect. You like to have proof. And more. No,
it goes with it. To me, you have the creative, irrational, beautiful art mind, and you have the logical, rational, tethered to earth, rational mind, and they work together. They're both valuable. Now you don't want to have one retard the other. And you don't have one drag one off the edge of a cliff. So you have this kind of mechanism. And if you throw in the spiritual connection, where you have information coming from higher dimensions that are filtering down, you have this nice system. And it seems like I have two options in this world, and it goes from people listening to the show or not, is I either go into crazy land or I go into like this. Yeah,
that's good, yeah.
I mean, that's like, wait a minute, it's supposed to be a harmony thing here. It's supposed to be discovery, and truth is going to be grounded, and it's going to be creative and new at the same time. There's going to be a tether to reality. I don't have that choice, it seems. It seems like I can believe in Q, or I'm an agent of the cabal on Earth. And it's like, well, wait a minute, I just gave that as an example. Wait, where's the interplay between rational analysis and creative energy? Where is it? I don't see it. I see just a split.
Well, imagine your great-grandfather watching you on this movie, and he's hearing Grant's past. What do you think he'd think?
You think that all this stuff is a complete waste of time?
Well, wait a minute.
You think it's a complete waste of time because 2,000
miles away, in the middle of darkness, and it's light here, and yet he's able to talk to you. Oh, I know what he'd call that. Breaker 17. Come on. That's ESP today. Back in, Back to the Future. When you realize what we're doing today with technology, I wrote a science fiction story when I was 14 years old. And it was similar to what later was called the Forbin Project, where they built this big computer, this huge computer, and gave it the sum of all of man's knowledge into this computer. And they asked it its first question. And they said, "Is there a God?" And the computer didn't hesitate when it said, "There is now." Now, what came first? Information, the computer, or man? I've watched Hopi and Navajo do sand paintings and be able to do physical phenomena with just creating a sand painting. Weather. Hopi have this behavior thing with some shamans that they do this different song. You step back and you look at that sand painting, and it looks like a solid state physics device. Technology has many, many faces. It's been different each. I'm guessing that spacecraft that's crashed on the other side of the moon is most likely Tibetan Buddhist. I have watched Tibet, trying to be closer to God, have technologies that we don't or have forgotten. Now, how does that work? What does technology mean? Well, science and technology is a way of being, and it's relatively new because the Bible originally was on the concepts of religion rather than science. Science is the same thing as religion. It's just the other side of the way you choose to look at your sun.
I mean, science is the use of tools to understand the reality we can see and we can prove and measure.
Yeah, but you're not.
It's very limited. It's very limited.
Your eyes aren't seeing, for example, they're filtering. That means they're doing bandwidth specific and they're limited.
But a science will measure the bandwidth of your eye potential. That's what science can't tell you who created an eye, if it was created by God. It's like, here's what an eye can do. That's all science. Science is like a dumb animal. It's a machine. It's all, there's no consciousness at all. It is just how many miles from here to the moon. That's all science is. Science can't say, can't answer questions.
That answer, for example, changes with the phases of the moon.
Right. I know that, but that's all science is.
I've just thrown a second variable in there that changes with time. And so let's measure it against space and time. But supposing I told you that time isn't real, that it's a duration of consciousness. The chapter we're talking about on the illusion of reality is called Time Travel and the True Nature of Cavitation. Cavitation balls are when an element, water, a drop of water, falls and hits a pool of water. What do you think dark matter is? I put on my website a picture of a universe that you can move a shade going this way or that way, where you can look at the real universe or dark matter universe and the relationship of the one to the other. And it already then now becomes clear what dark matter is. It's the other side of matter. It's like you push against a membrane. When the drop falls and hits the pool of water, several things happen. It splashes where it pops back up again, except the wave going out is the wave in the future. The wave going in slaps it and forms not a drop of water, but a bubble of water. Exclusion zone water, a very special kind of water, trapping the medium in which it was falling, air. And inside that is a cavitation called the torus twister thing, like Roger Penrose, to be distinguished differently than Hawking's, that does the white hole, black hole concept into the outer. The cavitation is turning into itself, and it goes down below quantum mechanical and out further than the universe. It is a membrane type physics where you push, and psyche, and matter. And matter is just one part of psyche. And so it's like the physical and emotional plane. And once you get that concept of looking at the world from that point of view, now you have access to that point of view.
So, let me ask you a question. I'm not being disrespectful, and I'm not being a smartass. I'm just saying
we're all good.
I'm trying to just put it in perspective. Is what is that information going to do to help someone who is held in a captive, oppressive country, whose perhaps husband is a jerk and the kids are starving? What is that information going to do to help life on Earth? This is what I'm running into. I'm running into a lot of stuff, a lot of just talk and stuff that doesn't help mankind. Now, I can explain why mankind where it is. I can go philosophically and explain about how over the years the governments have been tyrannical, and I understand all of that. But right now we're at a point in life and in time, especially when we're looking at this country, we're in a point now of a brewing, like a potential civil war, right? So what has all this got to do with anything? I mean, this is what I'm dealing with myself, because I like talking about this stuff. But then part of me is going like, what the hell has this got to do with anything? I mean, right now, if my engine breaks, last week I was driving on the road and something blew out on my engine and it was steam all over the place. I looked at it, I thought it was the head gasket, which is like 10 grand. I'm bankrupt at that point, right? Right? So this is the reality that I'm in, and I'm not even in those world where I'm getting beat. Will I starve? Will I live for today? And there's millions of people, probably billions of people in that position. So when I look at and I read the messages talking about Q and all these secret informations, and you have to do this, and I look at it, I go, what the hell is that going to help the world? It's almost like an escapism. It's like losing our mind into fantasy so that we don't look at reality, which is staring me like it's staring me. There's a movie, if you ever watched Christmas Carol, the one that's in like 54, right? Yeah. When the Ghost of Christmas Present opens up his robe and has the girl and the boy who are real skinny and this is ignorance, and this is what I see in the world. And that's why I go, when I go out and I see this in the world, I see it in people I know, intimate family members, friends, work, around the world. I see all this stuff, and I go, what the hell does all this other stuff got to do with anything? If we put all the energy we put into the solving stuff, we can get something done. Instead, we're all off talking and blah, blah, blah. And I'm having a hard time right now. I'm really going through a crisis where I want to go to hell with it all.
Well, if it's any consolation, I love your mind and I love you in this moment. And I don't think you're in yeah, there it is. That's the place. Now, then these other things, I have the same problem. I don't have a 10 grand problem. Mine's only putting a transmission in my truck, and I can't afford it. My insurance, what do? I pay for the insurance on a vehicle I can't use. So the bad news is I have to drive my 280Z. I have a Datsun 280Z, and I'm having the time of my life driving my old rack car. It's in mint condition, and now I have become, truthfully, Dr. Strange. And that's what I aspired toward. I want to have happiness even when I'm misery. My glass is half full. And not only that, in terms of your transmission, everything works out in the end. That's
yeah, because we all die.
No.
We all die and get out of this mess.
Well, the way I was going to put it is, if things aren't working out, it's not yet the end. Because they do work out. And everything works out to be something better because there's spiritual growth involved. And you are more likely than not, even with all of this misery right now, you're probably more happy right this moment than you ever can remember yourself.
No, that's not true.
Well, I am.
I remember a time. I remember a time in the late 90s when I saw a whole future ahead of me. I was going into astrology. I was going into Bible study, a real Bible study, not in a church, but on my own. I'm going through this all these different problems. I'm writing music. I'm going forward, and it all just went to hell. Now, I'm not. It's my fault. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not saying, "Oh, look what happened to me, poor me." No. I understand this. There's no.
There are cycles in Chinese, and the cycle of 7, Saturn return, age 28. Where you're in 7 years of silence, 7 years of activity. there are biological stuff. They call them, what are they? Biorhythms. There you are. And sometimes things are in sync with themselves, and sometimes not. Today, I'm healthier than I've ever been spiritually. And for that, I'm grateful. I'm grateful. That's a good word. And I'm not going to quote Tina Turner. You know, what's love got to do with it? The humor part is what makes me get through the weird traffic. Just in the way people are driving today, you can see the stress in everything. And the Me Too's or the La La Landers. And they're either not even aware of anything, in which case they're asleep and not real, or they're me first. And when I grew up in Seattle, Seattle was a small town. It was nothing like San Francisco. It's different now, but when I was a boy, we'd say 2 years later, divided by 4. That was Seattle. And we had Boeing rush hour. And so they put shifts in, 2:30, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 4:35, where people are released in saggers. And in that manner, over the years, we learned how to cooperate, like you do at a 4-way stop sign, where, everybody knows the role of who goes through it next. That's the way I drove up in Washington. Oregon was a little more Wild West. California carried weapons. And you can tell where somebody's from by the way they drive. And there are rules of engagement predicated on what the traffic will bear. That's a marketing term. And I am watching the tenseness and understanding. I feel it myself. The diet, the weather, the sun is different now. You can't be out in the sun more than an hour, and it will cause radiation damage on your skin now. Different than it was 40 years ago when I used to lay on at Angle Lake up in Seattle and try to get a tan. It's different. The sun today is in a solar minimum. We're going toward a solar minimum, which means as it goes through space and hits trash, there's a lot of trash in space. The trash now is going around the sun and hitting the Earth. And what it's actually doing, the Earth has literally expanded 0.6 times. It's almost twice, half again, what it was back in Noah and the flood, which means that a tsunami today will be less and yet more destructive. That's why the Earth is expanding. It's absorbing all its trash in deep space. We're seeing it in the way the sun is hitting the radiation. What it's doing is the radiation is coming down to the surface now where it can't be absorbed, and it's killing the insects. That's where we're noticing that in the Midwest, where the farmers are noticing there's less insects, ants, flies. And this is an indicator of the UVBs that are now coming off the sun, ultraviolet, long ultraviolet, and it's toxic. And now we want to put a 5G tower in, where we've essentially taken the outer space and brought it down to the surface of the Earth and radiating man. And that is called LD50 ratio and is toxic, like literally. And while it might be convenient to have a Tesla-like way of charging your battery on the run, electromagnetic fields, 5G towers, it does have dosimetry on the body. And that's why I used to carry a dosimetry badge to measure that crap, because it's dangerous. And the new technologies are all coming out that are designed for convenience and slickness, and they all have a price. And so I'm trying to move more into the mountains. I am practicing as best I can with grid down situations, and that's what I'm doing workshops on all through Canada. I'm setting up sustainable lifeboats, and these lifeboats are like Chattanooga. When I did Chattanooga, I did I think it was like 4 workshops. At the end of those 4 workshops, every major restaurant, Chattanooga now has a greenhouse, and Chattanooga is the only city right now in America that is eating 40% of the food that's grown locally right there. Chicago has a community garden right down the center of it. That's very cool. Chicago could be next. A community garden. What we did in Chattanooga is we took an older 200-acre farm that was like 300 years old. It was a really old farm. And turned it into a community garden in the center of Chattanooga. And that's why the logo there now is right here, right now, for food. And I think Chicago could do the same thing, because when that grid does down, and you can count on it, can you imagine being up 13 floors in a high-rise and you have to go to the bathroom? How's that going to work?
No, it's going to be complete destruction.
It's going to be real.
No, I gotta wind this down here, because I gotta, I gotta get up for work tomorrow. And
I love you. I really miss you.
If you can answer in very shortly, somebody asked if you ever sun gaze.
No, no. I know what that is. I know that movement. I've got enough floaters in my eyes right now. I had to go in for cataracts. I got enough problems with my eyes to do that too. Yeah.
No, I have problems. I have to go this Saturday.
I walk around barefoot. Does that count?
Yeah, it's good for electronics.
Oh yeah, and I ate a real Girl Scout cookie made with real Girl Scouts. So I did Addams Family. A joke. Sorry.
Right. I was. Well, I have to go. I do appreciate talking with you. It's always kind of fun. I apologize for being the stick in the mud here, but this is where I'm at now.
You're so. You're my friend. Someone I really care about, and I like. I wished I could come back to Chicago. You know, that psychotronic fair that they had there, that was a lot of fun. And those people have been doing that a long time. The first one was in Prague, where I presented my paper back in 1972. And Chicago with Edward Everett Horton. And who else was doing that? That was the Reverend J. Gordon Melton. They were all out of Chicago. Chicago is a pretty cool place. You got Acadians up north of you.
Well, again, I appreciate it, and I would like to see. I mean, I'd like to come out. I mean, I appreciate your hospitality and your invitation, but that evil materialistic side of me has to figure a way to pay to be able to do it. So,
don't worry about that. That's all going to end abruptly.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Yeah, and if it does, just realize I have a seat out here in a lifeboat for you you and your family. If you want to get out here. Wagon trains or whatever with horses. I don't know how you're going to do that. Well, they did it in the past, Grandpa.
But I do have to go. We have a segment with Less Visible. I'll play at the end while I'm doing my chores here at technical chores. But I want to again say I appreciate you spending your time here, and the people who are listening love you. There's people in the chat room are saying I love this guy, holy man, and.
I'm a holy man, full of holes, yeah. I'll send you some resources that you can put up on your website for your listeners that they might find interesting and useful. I'm even doing some fullerene stuff and showing you how to make it yourself.
Okay, all right.
Easy to do, yeah. Well, I'll talk to you in a bit. Nice talking to you.
All right, thanks a lot, Richard. God bless.
Bye, Jeff.
Bye.
Yeah, God bless you too.
Richard Miller, I like him. He's one of these guys that's very humble, very knowledgeable, and it's good to talk with. He's one of the guys that's kind of a bridge between, like, crazy land and reality. He's kind of got a foot out into the unknown and a foot firmly on the ground. So, anyway, I got a letter from Less Visible who said he got his technical issues done. I'm going to have to play the segment directly from YouTube as opposed to incorporating it into the system. Bottom line is you want to hear what he says anyway, whether or not it's framed in some kind of background. So we'll go to that, and we'll let him talk while I'm doing my ending maintenance. And so, we'll end after that. So I appreciate those who took the time to come in and use this time for Richard. I hope I asked questions that I could. I hope I brought up some stuff that maybe were on your mind. And I just kind of let Richard go. As you know, many times I just let it go because what am I going to, I don't want to interfere with the flow because he's all over the place. So anyway, Off to less visible.
Hello again. Dog Poet transmitting. Saucer Pod is around here somewhere. I don't know. It's August. It's very hot. It's coming upon my birthday. I don't know if that means anything. I guess it has significance. Mark Twain came in the year that Halley's Comet came in. And when he died, it happened again. So, I have no back. Well, haven't been. And so, greetings, my friends. These are perilous times. When nothing seems to be going on, a lot is probably going on. The governments of the world, because, you know, their day has come, and there is a new system. Would I call it a system? I don't know. Secretary Beard. I've been reading The Lord of the Rings to my friend for some time now. We're almost at the end of the second book. It tends to scramble my marbles up here, so I'm not sure which planet I'm on. Planet Earth or planet Middle Earth. Okay? Aragorn of Arathorn, Arendelle, and such and such. We're an affiliate at the moment, but as the case would be. You must, oh, you absolutely must. Well, you should, and you could, and you very much got to get more God in your life. However you fancy the Almighty Lord. I'm very devoted to Mother Kali. This is her realm that we live in right now. She's a real sweetie pie, I think, anyway. And the Lord Ineffable, whose power and detail, you know, or, it's a little complex. Then there are the invisible friends. Thank God for that. Make sure that you've put God at the centerpiece on the table of your life. If you... No, there's no if. Make God the centerpiece of your life. Whatever you may be doing it for God. Okay? Well, what God? Which God? What? God exists. You must choose the one of your imagining. In the Hindu tradition, Christian tradition, other traditions, Buddhist traditions, there are many templates, okay? So you may go that way, or you may go that way. So just do a little bit of that waddle thing, you know. Kung Fu, it energizes me. So to speak. Well, I'm a bit of a happy camper now because God has completely taken over my existence, my life, everything about me. To do all kinds of nice things for me and making me do nice things for myself. I'm stepping on my own foot. I would have said something else, but broadcast, standards must be managed. In any case, it's pretty hot around here these days. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Jesus. I love juice. Lady Nature, my friends. I really don't know if you appreciate her as much as you really should. You go out into the yard. There are birds and squirrels and rabbits, and, coyotes, all kinds of things. Roadrunners. The quails. The quails are amazing. They look like a London in Britain, maybe kind of like a bustling barrister, with his wife and like 6 toddlers. Well, there are quite many more, and they'll go streaming through, okay? And they got guards looking out all the way, because see, roadrunners like to eat the little guys back to life. And I chased after one once. I'm not supposed to interfere, but I know, the little quail. All right. And they come for the food, push the other birds away, let the little guys get their needies. Kind of nice. Well, these are the kind of things that I make my life happen in. Now I'm putting together a reading of The Lord of the Rings. At first I thought I would do he's not a bad sort, not bad. Like Michael Caine doing Tolkien, reading his own book, okay? And then I go into different voices with him. And with Golem, I go, oh, precious, we'd like to fish his that sort of thing, you know. And meanwhile, I was supposed to be making audiobooks of my own work, but being the moron that I am, I'm going to start putting out up on YouTube for you guys, girls, and those who don't have a clue as to what they are. God, that gender bender thing is that not amazing? People are being referred to as they, the, them. Shit's real, man. And not entertaining. Well, entertaining, yes, but troublesome, because it could become, it's like the comunista, you know. I always tell people, you want to know where to go and how to work about things? Look at what the Bolsheviks did in Russia. Transliterated into the Second World War, and dang. Many of you already know. Anyway, it's adios time. Time for me to go. I'd like to thank everyone who has helped in this production, because I'm just standing in. So, much love to you all. Be well, and may the good Lord bless you and hold you close and protect you forever and ever. Simply come under his overshadowing wings. Let him fold you in his cloak. Hold close to the Lord. Practice the presence of God within. And then I think you will have had it made.